Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. I appreciate the work that you're all working on and doing this. I happen to live in the lower Fox River watershed in northeast Wisconsin. I live on the shoreline. And so I've been able to see in real time some of the improvements that are actually happening. And Mr. Korleski, can GLRI funds be awarded to support partnerships between water systems and the agriculture industry? And by that I mean you've got both point source and non-point source issues, and so can there be some combination of partnership there, and the funds be used in an equal partnership with them together?
So, Mr. Chairman, Representative, yes, I think the short answer is yes. It would depend on how the project was organized and who was doing what. But one of the great things about the GLRI is that there is flexibility in terms of how we award and provide money. So I would think that yes, depending on what was being proposed and who was involved, that is something that we could do and we could certainly look at.
So it's a bit of a, kind of a exploration of ideas, and you're looking at the best ideas, and if someone comes up with some type of program that makes sense to you all, that would be something you would take a look at.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, absolutely. The one thing that we do not pretend to have is all the answers, and we don't pretend that we've got everything down to a science. We don't, and we are open to new ideas.
Are the hypoxic zones in Green Bay similar to the ones in Lake Erie?
So my understanding, I'm more familiar with the Lake Erie area, partly because, frankly, I'm from Ohio. But I think the problem is the same. I think the magnitude of the blooms in the western basin of Lake Erie have been greater. That's not to minimize what's happening up in either the Saginaw Bay or the Fox River area. But the problem, we believe, is caused by the same issue, which is too much phosphorus getting into the water, and we think the solutions are essentially the same. Try to figure out how to reduce phosphorus both dissolved and in other forms from getting into the water.
Yeah. Basically keeping the nutrient on the soil and not in the water.
Where they're needed.
Ultimately where you need to go.
Where they're needed, yes.
Yeah, and Mr. Kramer, first of all, I want to commend the work that your agency has been doing in Wisconsin and Lower Fox.
Thank you.
One of the things I hear repeatedly from county executives in the entire Lake Winnebago, Lower Fox watershed, which drains into Green Bay, is that they actually could use more conservation agents, whether they're agents that are on the ground at the county level or with your agency. Can GLRI funds be used by county executives to increase agency partnerships with working with agriculture?
Yes, they can. And as a matter of fact, NRCS has utilized some of the GLI funding in just such that way. In my oral, I believe, written testimony alluded to the agreements that to extend the federal contributions. We can enter into agreements with soil and water districts, state departments of agriculture, and others to put more boots on the ground, more folks out there on the field, and we have done that throughout various areas throughout the Great Lakes.
Yeah, because in this watershed, the one I'm speaking of here in northeast Wisconsin, there's 71 CAFOs, large farming operations, one of the highest density in the country, and around 1,500 to 1,600 smaller dairies. And there's a lot of animals in this area. And reaching out to that many individual dairy farmers is a tough task with the number of bodies there. But what I have experienced both with your agency and working with Wisconsin dairy industry is that they're anxious to start solving this problem. They want to be part of the solution. But for some of the smaller dairies, it does become an issue of resources. Are funds available for some type of joint sharing of equipment? For example, direct injection of manure into the soil as opposed to just mass spreading it using water as a carrying agent, but that equipment's $80, $90, $100,000. Could it be shared by a county over a large area of land so that multiple farmers would have access to that type of equipment through the grant system?
Yeah, typically the NRCS program, specifically EQIP, would not actually purchase a piece of equipment. But what it would do is provide an incentive to those farmers where they could go in, if they want to go out and purchase that together to share it, they could use those funds to do that. What we're looking for is the activity. What are they actually doing on the farm? And we're paying an incentive for that activity. Now, if that means they have to get a piece of equipment or modify it, that's fine. But we definitely stray from using the tax dollars to actually purchase a piece of equipment, which may not be there in 2 to 3 years, or it might get sold down
Sure.
the road.
Sure.
But there are ways to get to where you're
Yeah,
going
because when
to.
you look at the technologies available with low-till equipment, with direct injection
Yes.
manure, the things that will actually keep the nutrient in the field,
Absolutely.
those bear a fair amount of cost.
Yes, they do.
And then my final question, then, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back. Mr. Gomez, in your report, did you guys look at the efficiency of the funding? In other words, how much money is going to just the administration of the fund itself versus how much is actually getting to specific projects?
Sure. So we did look at, I mentioned earlier, we looked at 19 projects in detail. And in those projects, we did look at the amount of money that was going to indirect cost. And we found that that varied from 0 to 37%. In the cases where it was 0, it was because the entities hadn't established an indirect rate yet with the EPA. Those that were higher, those tend to be universities that charge a higher indirect rate. So that's the way we looked at it in terms of the projects, and we looked at, as I said, 19.
There's obviously anything we can do to reduce the indirect costs so that more of it actually gets to the ground is going to be a better use of this taxpayer funding. Thank you, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.